Welcome to the Talking Heads podcast. It's the animated podcast about artists or creators and their process. My guest today is Eyepatch Wolf.
Hey.
Thanks so much for coming on today, man.
No problem, dude. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked that you agreed to come on. Obviously, I'm a pretty big fan. I love your videos. I'm super pumped to learn about what kind of work goes into creating them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I guess it's kind of always changing. You know, for about 2 years now, I've been working on this big Word document about how I make videos, but I've never released it because it always changes and I'm always 6 months down the line and I'm kind of oh, you know what? I don't even think this anymore. This entire section's got to go. So this will be a nice
really?
snapshot. Yeah, totally.
Speaking of your YouTube channel, you want to kind of describe what kind of videos or content you make to someone who might not be familiar?
Yeah, sure. So I run the YouTube channel Eyepatch Wolf, and I've been doing that for about 5 years full time now. I started off making videos mainly about anime, and the only real reason for that was that I just didn't have any video recording equipment. I didn't know a lot about getting video footage from the internet and stuff like that, and so anime seemed like a reasonable way to go. But since then the channel's kind of expanded a lot, and I kind of talk about anything now that just takes my interest. I still do the odd anime video and I still enjoy doing it, and it's always going to be a part of the channel, but nowadays it's just anything that I think is weird or interesting enough to talk about for 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about your channel is kind of the variety of different topics, you know? There's really almost something for everybody on there.
I always think what's the perfect scenario for one of my videos? What am I trying to do with them? And honestly, the only thing I'm really trying to do is just entertain people. And so I picture someone who's had a really shitty day at work, you know, maybe is going through some crap in their personal life. If they come home and they see that I've uploaded a new video and I watch them and it takes them out of that for 20 or 30 minutes, I guess I want those videos to be an escape for people. And I think the reason for that is I have content creators and podcasts and stuff that are like that for me, and I know what an important thing that is in my life. And so if I can create that for other people, I think that's a really good thing.
Would you say your videos are geared towards a specific type of audience, anime fans, or maybe, I guess, just people that would have similar interests to you? Is that kind of your angle?
No, not really. The only person I kind of am making the videos for is me, and it's kind of selfish like that. The only reason I'll ever make a video is because I have some personal investment, and I can think of a handful of times I've kind of strayed outside of that, and those always end up being the videos that I feel are my weakest. Say if I want to talk about the Undertale fandom, one thing I will have in my mind the entire time making it is would my mom and dad be able to understand this? Would this video make sense to them? Because I do want everyone to be able to enjoy the videos, or at least, you know, people who are savvy enough to be on YouTube. But generally when I'm making videos, in terms of picking the topics, I'm just going to pick stuff for me. In terms of how I talk about it, I'm going to try and talk about it in a way that makes it interesting for everyone.
What's kind of the origin story of the YouTube channel? How'd you get into it? I mean, I know you're trying to kind of entertain other people and entertain yourself by making these videos. So do you got a cool origin story of how you kind of got into YouTube?
I do. It's kind of a bummer, but I don't mind getting into it.
Yeah, man, lay it down. I want to hear it. I need to know.
So a long time ago, I worked in an animation studio, and it was a perfectly fine job. It was comfortable.
What animation studio can you say?
I don't think I'm gonna say that just because I have a lot of friends that still work there and kind of
I gotcha.
So, yeah.
What did you do at the animation studio? Can you say that?
So I was in visual compositing and stuff.
Okay.
And so that's basically kind of special effects, putting the polish on scenes, adding making it all look less flat, and making tying it all together and making it look kind of nice.
Yeah, all these different elements belong together in the same scene, making it look like that.
A lot of the time when you get your background from the background artists and you get your animation from the animators and you put them together and it looks really flat and it looks really simple. And so we'd add shadows, add like smoke, explosions, special effects, lighting, all this kind of stuff to make it look more than simple. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And,
okay, that's cool.
It was, you know, like it was a cool job and I was relatively good at it, but there was two problems. And the first was just like, it's paid fine. Not like a huge amount, but definitely enough to keep me there. And the second was that the first month I was there, I learned so much. Like I learned so much. And then my second month there, I learned maybe half that, which is still a lot. And then the month after that, I learned half that again. And I felt like every month that went by, I was learning less and less, to the point I nearly kind of felt like an assembly line worker, where I was just kind of carrying out a specific step of tasks over and over and over. And after enough time, that started to get to me, you know, because like I wasn't creatively fulfilled. And I think what really scared me is that I could see myself there forever because it was a comfortable job. And so I left and I kind of freelanced it for a little bit before I ended up taking a job at this other studio. This wasn't actually a studio. This was like a small business. It was like a fledgling business run by this like group of young business guys who had just got like a huge amount of money. And they were trying to basically open up this like online learning course thing where they had all these animations. They wanted me to like animate them, and I was only meant to be there for a week. And so I animated them. And then at the end of the week, I was like, who of you guys got to edit these? And they were like, what do you mean edit? And I was like, who of you got to like actually cut the footage together with the voice? And they were like, is that a step we have to do? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh shit. And so then they hired me as their editor. Then I became like the head of animation, and then I became the head of production. And this all happened very quickly in about 6 months. And it came with like big, massive pay bumps and everything. And I was like thrilled. And I basically built out their entire pipeline, and I was super proud of it. Yeah. And like, I really loved working there. And I grew really close with my staff there as well. I basically hired a bunch of people who were straight out of animation college. A lot of them went on to be like some of my closest friends now.
That's cool.
But then I remember one Tuesday, my boss calls me down to this cafe across the street. And I didn't know what it was over, but I'm sure it's like just a kind of production thing or whatever. And he sits me down and he just, before we say anything, he just goes, we're letting you go.
Really? Right off the bat, he doesn't like ease into it or anything?
Just first thing he says.
Cold.
And I remember the room just swam. I nearly fell out of my seat because it was like there was no indication that this was going to happen. There was like all targets were hit. Everyone was like happy. It was like the job was moving along fine. I couldn't get my head around this, you know?
Did he give you any reasons?
He gave me some very vague reasons about me not knowing enough about business.
But you built this whole department from the ground pretty much.
And like, yeah, that's what I kind of felt. I was like, but okay, like, no, I don't know. Like when he said about business, he's literally meant the stuff they were teaching in their course. And I was like, but you hired me for production and you've never...
Yeah, it's not your job to know the material of the course.
Yeah, and at never at any time during the year I worked there did he say, I need you to start studying this stuff so you understand it. Like, it was never that. And I realized what he had done was he had brought me in to build their pipeline. And then as soon as he felt like he could let me go, as soon as I had put that pipeline in place and it was sufficient, he was like, don't need this anymore. At the time, I didn't know that. It was devastating.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
This was the worst fire. Like, I had to go back up to my team. I had to call them around and be like, listen, I've been let go. I started crying halfway through it. Had to like pack up my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure figures. And it was just... it was the worst. Like, it was...
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, man.
Yeah, and I just remember like sitting in a park afterwards and just like staring into this lake and just being like, what the fuck am I gonna do?
Well, because you built something out of you know, like you're attached to it, obviously.
Being separated from my employees genuinely felt I felt like a dad in a divorce who like couldn't see his kids anymore. It was just obliterating, you know, like when you like, and I was young, I was like, 24, 25 maybe. Like I'd never been fired from anything. Like I couldn't believe it. And like I could tell the guy felt guilty about it. Like they gave me a really generous severance and all this kind of stuff, but fuck, like what was I gonna do? Because like now I had this apartment and my girlfriend was doing an internship. I had to step up and support us, and so my only choice was to go back to my old job, which I really didn't want to do. Oh my God, I'll never forget the first day back there, right? There was this guy who used to work there, and he was a nice guy, but he had zero self-awareness. But he used to have this bit where he'd pull down his zipper and he'd poke a dildo out through the bottom of his zipper.
What?
You could not get away with that shit now.
At work?
At work, in front of everyone, right?
Why is there a dildo at work in the first place?
That's like, this was a small studio that like grew into a much larger studio, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah.
I remember for my first stint there, I was like, wow, I don't know how this guy gets away with this. Like, I don't know how management or HR hasn't been called up multiple times. And I remember my first day there, I'm just staring into space in front of me, just being like, I can't believe I'm back here. I can't believe I'm doing this again. And this guy with the dildo hanging out just walks into my field of vision. And it was like the grimmest, most apocalyptic thing I could have seen in that moment.
Icing on the cake.
Yeah. And I spent about a year there. Every week I was terrified I was going to get fired. Like whenever my team lead was like, could I have a word with you? I was always like, this is it. I'm fucking gone.
PTSD.
I knew I had some like demons to fight. Like I knew that like internally I was not okay at all. And a lot of the times back then, what I do whenever I felt like I was not in a great spot is I do a little traveling by myself. I live in Ireland, and so I decided I was going to take a trip to London. And like, this is something that I really love doing. I love traveling to cities by myself. I can't really do it anymore now. It was something I'd kind of just go and disappear and just be nobody for a couple of days. And it was always like very healthy. I felt like it always gave me some perspective on things. But this trip was kind of different because I was just so fucked up at that point. I felt really physically weak and I couldn't pin it down. And so then one morning I woke up at like 3 a.m. My chest was beating harder than it had ever beat in my life, pumping sweat. There was a film of liquid all over my body. I dove out of bed and I was like, oh shit, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is happening? I nearly called an ambulance. And at one point I looked out the window and it was like the weirdest like psychological effect. My brain was interpreting the darkness outside as like a solid shape. That's how kind of out of it I was. Later, I'd find out what was happening to me is I was having a really intense panic attack. I thought I had had panic attacks before, but they were like nothing compared to this. I spent the rest of that trip kind of just on the verge of like trying to consider whether I should like go to a hospital or not. I ended up not doing it, and what I ended up doing was trying to find different ways to like distract my mind from the idea of panic or stressing out, you know? And so one of the ways I did that is that I started writing a script for a YouTube video that I'd wanted to make for a really long time. And at this point, I'd never made a YouTube video. I'd never written a script. I'd never done anything. And that ended up being the first draft of why you should watch Hunter x Hunter, which is the first video on my channel.
Great video, by the way.
Thank you. There's a million billion things I'd change about it now, but like I'm always appreciative that it's something people enjoy. And so I made that video, and it was all just like, I had fun writing it, I recorded it, and then I had fun editing it. That was really enjoyable. And it was just this like very small scale, step by step, like, oh, this is okay. As I did, it kind of gave me like a purpose again and helped me kind of accept this kind of new phase of my life. And so I uploaded the video. A week later, it had, I think, 90 views. And I was like, wow, Jesus Christ, YouTube's tough, you know?
I've fucking been there.
Yeah. Slowly, people started trickling into the channel, and people started subscribing, and people started leaving comments. Something about this felt different because like I have tried a lot of different things in my life, okay? I've been part of electronic kind of trance electronic bands. I've like trained to be a professional wrestler. I've like done martial arts. I've done all this kind of stuff, and like I've really enjoyed all of it, but none of it's ever worked out. It always felt like I spent years trying to become like an illustrator and like a storyboarder and all this kind of stuff, and it always felt like trying to roll a boulder up a hill. But this YouTube, when I watched that video start to gather momentum, it kind of felt like the opposite. It kind of felt like a boulder going downhill, and I didn't even have to do that much. I am very fortunate it felt that way and that it worked out like that, because I know a lot of people it doesn't work out like that.
Okay, we're back in it now. I just want to preface this again. We had some technical difficulties, but I'm going to try to stitch this together seamlessly. But like I said, if that can't happen, there might be a little hiccup, and that's because we ran into some problems.
Technical difficulties, which were entirely on my end, and Ben's very, very generous to leave that part out. But yeah, I have destroyed so many recordings and interviews and everything, but I still do them, so I guess
this is a first for me, definitely.
Okay, cool. So I ruined your perfect record.
Yes. You know what was funny? I was looking at it, and this would be my 14th episode. So I was like, ooh, if it was just number 13, it would have been perfect. But yeah, I mean, don't want to dwell on it too much. It was obviously the best podcast ever made that no one's ever going to hear, but that's okay.
I was legitimately, I came away from that interview being like, that was a fucking great interview. I feel like we really got to the heart of some stuff. Can't wait for people to hear that. Gone.
Yep.
All
revelations were made.
Yep.
Huge plot twist. Yeah. Sorry guys, but maybe in the next one. But anyways, where we kind of left off there was kind of like the genesis of your YouTube channel, and like that first video you made with the Hunter x Hunter video. You mentioned like there was a lot you would change about it. So how much would you say your process has changed since that first video?
Oh, 100%. Like, it's not the same process at all. Like, everything about how I do things, from like recording dialogue to editing to writing, it's like the philosophy on all of it has completely changed, you know? And like, I hope in like 4 years my philosophies will all have changed again, because I think that's what kind of keeps it interesting.
Yeah, keeps it fresh. So yeah, kind of back into how things have changed. I want to get into a little bit on like how you select a topic, because that was something that we kind of talked about last time. That was very interesting to me anyways. Just because you have such interesting topics on your channel, like from the wrestling to the Undertale and stuff like that.
Sometimes I nearly feel like I don't really pick topics that much. It's more like I'll be watching like a TV show or something, and I'll just get this like feeling, and like it's nearly like a heat in my chest, I describe it as, where I'm like, I need to do something with this. Like, I need to make something out of this, you know what I mean? But the problem is, like, all that is, it's just like a concept. It's like a concept for a video. It's not really an idea for a video. So it might be like, I would love to make a video about The Sopranos, but that's not an idea for a video. That's just like a nebulous, loose, like that. A video about The Sopranos could be 80 million different things. But then it's like, I'll sit on it for a couple of months and I'll be like, okay, one day I'll be like brushing my teeth or like cycling back from training or something, and all of a sudden it'll just fucking hit me and I'll be like, oh my God, this is the idea. Because I think the last time I was talking about the Undertale video, and I was telling you how like when that video started out, my first idea for that video would be a video called Why Undertale is My Game of the Generation, which thank God I didn't make that video, because it would have been a shitty video and people would have got so mad. But as I kind of like started talking about Undertale, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying talking about like the mechanics and stuff, but really it's not doing anything that new that wasn't already around by this point. But the really interesting shit are these fucking videos I'm finding online. Like, why do these Undertale animations have like 60, 70 million views? Like, what is happening here? And then I started getting curious and I started digging, and that at some point I was just like, oh, this video isn't about Undertale as a game. This is about what the internet did to Undertale. And I'd say, like, all in all, since I decided like I wanted to do a video on Undertale, that video has probably been boiling in my head for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Oh, damn.
I really wanted to make an Undertale video, but for a long while I I just felt like everything had kind of been said about the game, you know what I mean? Which is dumb because I think I've watched maybe one Undertale video ever. I think I watched H-Bomb's video a long time ago, and I thought that video was really good, and I think that kind of intimidated me. I'm sure it's still really good, but I think I ended up kind of like, you know, just having my own stuff to say about it, and that ended up being really satisfying. I'm glad I went back and did it.
Would you say there's a particular like deep dive you went into that you kind of look back at most fondly?
The first wrestling video was a big moment for me because I remember thinking like, if I can get people to care about this, I can get them to care about anything. It was a time when I was like really kind of rediscovering wrestling in a lot of ways myself. I always remember I was like actually traveling to LA for the first time. I was in the Crunchyroll Awards. It was weird because, you know, flew like 16 hours by myself.
First time? Like that long anyways?
I'd flown by myself before, but not that long. I remember like, you know, getting to the hotel, and like it was this really nice hotel, but it was like a weird club as well. Like I had to walk in through basically a nightclub after 16 hours of trek and just being like, oh, I don't fucking know about this. And then I got up to my room, and it was a really nice room, but it was really weird and horny. There was like condoms by the bedside and stuff, which like, you know, I appreciate it. I mean, we should all maintain, you know, our health. There would be like this is so off tangent. There would be like a tag on the soap, and it would say like, I'm so wet for you. And it's
what
like,
the fuck? Where was this?
Why does it feel like my hotel room's trying to fuck me? And so I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I was just scrolling through Twitter, and I came across this thread from a Twitter account called, I think, Simpsons Reference. And it was basically this like 40-part tweet thread about the saga of the Golden Lovers, which was this tag team in Japan between Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. And I just read through the whole thing, and I swear to God, by the end of it, I had tears in my eyes, sitting completely alone in a hotel room, like, you know, 3,000 miles away from anyone I knew, from how fucking powerful this story was. I knew I had to talk about it. You know, like I had to track down these matches. I had to like see, I had to experience the storyline, and I did. And like it fucking just annihilated me. It's like when something crosses like an emotional threshold for me, at that point, I have to make a video about it. The video that ended up being is like why professional wrestling is fascinating, which in hindsight was I don't think that was a good name. And I'm lucky that as many people watched that as it did. Yeah, I think I probably could have sold it better in the title, but I'm still really proud of that video. I think now it's called Wrestling is Dumb and Beautiful, and I love it, which is still kind of bad, but it's better. But yeah, I still look back on that one really fondly. I learned a lot about, I guess, who I was online with that video.
Who are you online?
I don't make videos for other people. I make videos for me.
The artist.
Just complete like selfish asshole artist, you know? And like this is kind of the thing with me, and like this is why I think breaking into YouTube is so hard, because I know a big part of the discussion is always like appealing with your audience, and like I've had discussions with other creators where they talk about meeting their audience halfway and stuff. I genuinely don't. I am fortunate enough that I just make the things I want to make and people watch it. But I kind of feel like if that wasn't the case, I don't know that I'd be doing this.
It is interesting that like you've solely focused on what you want to make. Do you think there's something unique about you, or unique about your videos that like no one else has? You think that might have to play a part in it?
I don't feel like if anyone could say that, I think I'm probably the least qualified person on earth to say it, because I'm too close to them, and like I don't really think of my videos as unique, because all they are just like expressions of what I think.
I mean, I guess I would classify them as video essays, which there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what makes people, like what brings people in to watch those is the person giving the essay, right? So it's your personality. And I guess that's all YouTube videos, maybe, if that makes sense.
I think you're getting at something interesting though, because I do believe that there is a line with video essays, and I feel like the people who understand it tend to be very successful, and the people who maybe don't tend to be less successful. And like, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying that this is just kind of the difference between people with large followings and people who don't. I think there's a perception among smaller creators that video essays are a chance to prove your intelligence and to educate people. And I think there's absolutely a place for that. But to me, in reality, what video essays and a lot of modern content are is it's nearly like a kind of remedy for human loneliness, in that I think people, they seek out people to relate to online. And if someone to them comes across as personal or personable or relatable or something like that, then the chances of them maintaining a large following are really high.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, man. Looking for like the remedy to loneliness, right? So I remember when I finished reading Saga. I don't know if you've ever heard of the comic book called Saga.
I love Saga, yeah.
So like it's like a huge cliffhanger where like these two like main characters die, and one of them was like my favorite character, and I was like, holy shit, like this blew me away. It's like one of the first times like a comic book made me feel that way, you know. It kind of got me really into it. And I'm like, none of my friends read it, none of my friends know what Saga is, so like I turned to YouTube and I find one video on there about Saga, and now I'm like friends with the guy who made it. He was on this show previously, right?
Oh,
so it's
that's
just
so cool.
Yeah, it's like looking for connections like that. I think that's the coolest thing about video essays, or like even YouTube in general. Would you say you have like a voice or a particular style with your video editing?
Sure, but I think everyone does. Like, I think you could ask 100 people to edit, you know, the same piece of footage 100 different ways, and they're all going to be different. And so like I definitely think I do have a voice. I believe a lot in like the power of being able to say things through edits and to like change context. And like, to me, like editing is just as important as writing. Like a lot of creators my size, they'll have like a you know, an editor or a team of editors, and that's not something I've ever wanted to do, because I love editing so much. And like the feeling of finding like the right piece of music, that contextualizing what you're saying along with the footage, it's like fucking alchemy to me.
So you kind of edit your video, you're about to hit upload. Is there like a list of things or characteristics that you look for in every video you make, like before you can upload it? Like you have to check these off, like, oh, does it have this? Does it have that?
There's a lot of very technical stuff, like in terms of just making sure that a YouTube video goes up, that the Patreon's on Lord of that stuff. But if you're talking about like the feel of a video, every video is different. Like the most important thing for me is that if there's one basic thing, there has to be a part of the video that like hits me emotionally, that I kind of feel in my chest. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking about Shonen Jump sales figures or professional wrestling. To me, I have to look back at the video at the end and know why I made it. It's like, oh, that's why I made this video. You know, and sometimes getting to that point, it's like, it's nearly like fucking therapy. I always remember the Perfect Blue video I made. I love Perfect Blue. One of my favorite movies ever, has been for a long, long time. I was making this video and something about it just felt different. And I still think that's probably one of my best videos in terms of just being like, there's no bloat to it. It takes like 12 minutes. It's sharp and it delivers its message and stuff. But when I was making it, I was like, why is this video like getting to me? Like, why am I putting so much into this? And I couldn't figure it out. And eventually what I realized is if you've seen Perfect Blue, it's about a pop star trying to become an actress, and her dealing with kind of her public persona and people seeing her as things that she isn't and all this kind of stuff. And I made that video just as I was hitting like 100,000 subscribers, I think it was, or maybe it was 200,000, I can't remember. I was hitting a critical mass where I was starting to realize that like these versions of me existed in other people's minds that I didn't agree with being me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not who I am. Why would you think that? But then like as your kind of fan base grows and more people start to like engage with you, you begin to realize that there is like infinitely more versions of you than there is actually you.
Damn, man.
I really started to realize that with that video. I think that really kind of changed me. So to answer you, like, to get back to your question, when I stood back and looked at that video, it's like, why did I make this? It was kind of like, I made this because I'm starting to realize what it means to be well known, like what it is to be known online and to have this many eyes on you. There has to be that core to a video. There has to be that like, okay, this is a big fucking deal to me, because like if something isn't, why would I make a video about it? And like you know, the example I always use in this is I made a video called Why Attack on Titan is Popular. Why the fuck would I ever make a video like that? Like, why do I care why other people like Attack on Titan? Because I like Attack on Titan. I think Attack on Titan's pretty cool. If I wanted to make a video about Attack on Titan, why didn't I just make it about that? And the result, I feel, is easily one of my weakest videos.
So you talk about projects you're not very proud of. What's something you really want to improve on this year or moving forward with the way you make videos or maybe even your process or something like that?
I would like to get more out of my comfort zone.
Like what's outside of your comfort zone?
If a video is enjoyable to make, I'm always going to make it. But like if a video style starts to feel stagnant, then I'll drop it. Like, the big one is like why you should watch videos. I started off making videos called why you should watch, X anime or whatever. I ended up deciding to drop that, and I still think that's one of the best decisions I ever made on my channel, because even though at the time it was basically the crutch of my entire channel, breaking free of that and learning to do weirder, wilder shit, like, the Simpsons videos, the wrestling videos, the Sonic videos, all that kind of stuff. I want to keep moving on that path, and I want to keep making videos that I guess, like, people wouldn't expect. Like, I still see a criticism of my videos all the time being like, oh, his narration is like really melodramatic and forced. And I don't want it to feel that way. I want it to just feel natural. I want it to just feel like you're talking to an actual, person. And so that's something I still need to work on. But honestly, everything, like I want to improve in every possible way with videos.
So what would you say the most important part of your process is?
That's a tough one.
Let it marinate.
This might be a weird answer, but genuinely, I think one of the most important parts for like professionally, consistently outputting any kind of art is like maintaining your own mental health. Because if that goes to shit, everything else does as well. I've been thinking about this stuff like a lot lately, especially, I don't know if you saw, but like Ireland is riddled with COVID right now. It's like 1 in 25 people. I live next door to like best friends I can't even see because everyone's on lockdown. I think like just maintaining mental health, having that there so that like, I stay productive and I stay happy. Right now, that's kind of my biggest concern with videos. And if I would say this to one other thing, it's to just push yourself and be honest, be as honest what you can about how you feel about things. I think that would be it.
I've been dying to know since the last time we talked. I want to hear your pro wrestling story. I'm sure you've told it before somewhere else or when you were close to becoming a pro wrestler. I got to hear it.
Okay, yeah. We started this podcast by talking about how I got fired.
This is a good bookend. Good bookends right here.
So I felt like when I got fired, my confidence was like at an all-time low. I was like, John, your life's nothing right now. You have nothing. So you might as well try something, and it might as well be something you really, really want to try. Okay, I'm going to go and train to be a professional wrestler. And I found this wrestling school that was like a 15-minute cycle away from me. And I went there and I spent 6 months training to be a professional wrestler. And it was fucking great. I got so much respect for wrestlers. That shit hurts. And it hurts a lot. They're not actually fighting, but those are some tough fucking people to be able to endure that. I met some real like interesting characters and it was just the best. And like I never got to the point where I was like having matches or had a character. I do have a character I wanted to do.
Can you say what it was?
Yeah, I can say. So basically, there's an Irish wrestling association called OTT, Over the Top Wrestling. There's a lot of like drink, there's like a lot of kind of drugs. It's a very hardcore crowd. The matches can get really violent, but like it's amazing as well. Like it's brilliant. And I was like, okay, you have this super like adult crowd kind of baying for blood. What could I do to piss them off more than anything? And so I came up with a character called the Cyclist. And every match I'd come out and I'd be in my full like cycling shorts and my cycling top and a helmet, and I'd carry a bike to the ring. And then when I got to the ring, I'd put the bike down and I'd like lock it to the barricade, and then I'd take out another lock and lock it again, and another lock and lock it again and again until the crowd were like, come on, And so then like finally when they were like really impatient, I'd get in the ring and I'd have the microphone and I could go, if I could just have everyone's attention for the minute. Carbon monoxide poisoning is one of the greatest threats. I know at that point they would fucking lose it.
That's hilarious.
And so what I would love to have done is like, you know, I get a bunch of cheap wins by like hitting people with a bike lock or whatever, until then finally, eventually, you know, I go up against like, you know, the good guy champion, and I can't compete with him at all, and I end up like trying to escape and trying to run away from him until I get back to my bike, and I'm trying to unlock like the 12 locks, and I can, and he catches me and beats me.
Ironic. That'd be good.
That was my thought. It was one of those things where like it didn't work out, but I was so glad I did it, and I was so glad I gave it a shot. I think that's something people should keep in mind in general. Just, I feel like whenever someone pursues something they really want to do, a lot of the times they don't want to do it is because they're worried they'll fail. And so, like, Ben, if me and you judge my like professional wrestling career, absolute failure, just unmitigated failure, just did not happen, went nowhere. But that's fine, because it was awesome. The only reason I dropped it then was because it's when my YouTube channel was starting to take off, and I just knew I couldn't dedicate myself to both these things. And I always think like, if I ever get like reincarnated, I'm gonna go become a wrestler. And I just think it's really fucking important to just get out there and try stuff, because I tried a lot of shit before becoming a YouTuber. You know, like I was in an electronics band. I tried to be a storyboarder. I wanted to be a professional illustrator. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a cameraman. I wanted to be all this kind of stuff. And like one by one, none of it really worked out, but then YouTube just did. And I feel like everyone probably has something in them that's going to be the same. It's just a matter of finding it. And so just, you know, get out there, go through as much shit as you possibly can, try as much shit as you can, and have a great time doing it.
Hell yeah, man. It's about the journey. Definitely. I'm right there with you. Well, that sounds like a great place to wrap up. Super Eyepatch Wolf, thanks again so much for coming on. I appreciate it, man. It was a great talk.
Oh, no problem, dude. And I had a great time, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. You want to tell the people where to find you if they want to look up your... I mean, I'm sure everyone watching this is probably coming from your channel anyway.
Sure,
so.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, if you Google Super Eyepatch Wolf, I'm there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on YouTube. Kind of hard to miss at this point, unfortunately.
All right, man. Well, that was another episode of the Talking Heads podcast. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.
Whoa, you're still here! Click up here to subscribe, and click here to watch some of our other videos, you dingus.